Good morning, everyone. It's a real honor to be here. When I started at Get Healthy Philly, my office came with a sign, and the sign says, "Today is my chance to make this city a little bit better." And that sense of personal responsibility, that we can't do it all, but we also have to start the work, to me is the spirit of Get Healthy Philly. It's a spirit of relentless optimism, and it's the characteristic that really struck me when I met our next speaker, Karen Washington. So it's a real privilege to introduce Karen. She has been an urban farmer and an activist for a fair and just food system for more than 3 decades. Her work, starting urban farms, serving as the president of the New York City Community Garden Coalition, and as the co-founder of the Black Urban Growers Association, as a board member of Just Food, has been a catalyst for amplifying the conversation about an equitable food system. Karen brings hope, optimism, and fierce determination to all that she does. We are so lucky to have her as a speaker for us this morning. Welcome, Karen.
Yo, how's it going today? So my name is Karen Washington. I tell people I grow food, I feed people body and mind. I'm here because we have a crisis going on. Hunger, poverty, diet-related diseases. I'm a farmer, but back in the day, my relationship to food was the fact that my mom was a good cook, 3 meals a day. Food came from a grocery store. And if you wanted some good food, you had to add a little salt to your food. If you wanted some sweet tea, you had more sugar to some sweet tea. And if you wanted your food to taste good, you had to fry that food. You know what I'm talking about. But I never questioned where my food came from, never questioned who grew it. But things started to change for me. Because what happened back in the day is that in 1985, I moved to the Bronx. Part of the American dream, but across the street was an empty lot. And this photo was 35 years ago. But if you look at this photo today, it resonates with some of the things that are happening in other communities of color, in Baltimore, in Detroit, in Philly, right now. And for me, my American dream quickly became my American nightmare. However, people got together to start changing those empty lots into community gardens. But it came with a cost, because living in a municipality, there are political consequences. And so as we started to move forward, we changed those empty lots into what we call community gardens. And so the whole complexion had to change, because initially it wasn't about growing food, folks. It was about getting people together to change something that was blightful into something that was beautiful, getting people the hope that they needed to stay in their communities and make a difference. But for me, as I started to grow food, something happened. And what happened was that I couldn't just grow food and figure that was enough. I had to look at the intersection that food was happening in terms of social issues that were affecting my neighborhood, such as the environment, such as health, such as education. So many things that were playing a part in my community, because after all, people were telling people in my community that, you know what, the food system is broke and it needs to be fixed. How many of you know about that, right? How many raise your hands if you feel that the food system is broken and needs to be fixed? Because I used to believe that, and I was drinking the Kool-Aid. And so I started to peel back the food system and realize exactly what it was doing. It was a caste system. And I say that, folks, because we live in the greatest country in the world, where we grow enough food and we waste enough food, but that food is not getting back to the people that need it the most. And so I'm saying to myself, how can that happen? Because believe it or not, it's doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing. It's a caste system based on the color of one's skin, based upon where someone lives, and based upon how much wealth they have. It's not rocket science where the good food goes, more white, wealthy neighborhoods, and with the bad, cheap food goes, more neighborhoods of color. And so for me, the food system doesn't need to be fixed. It needs to change. And so for me, understanding the food system, I had to take a closer look because in my neighborhood, time and time again, people would talk about a just food system, a food system that's supposed to be equitable. But I would say, folks, if you look at our food system, and so this is my sort of pyramid system, that in my food system, we do have food. You know, people talk about our food system in terms of being cheap and subsidized, but I tell people we have the junk food, the processed food, and the fast food. And so from time to time again, when people talk about the food system, they talk about in terms of food justice, and they talk about in terms of food sovereignty, but they talk about it in terms of food deserts. Now, how many of y'all use that term, food deserts? Come on, raise your hands, you use that term, food deserts, right? And so for me, it's an outsider's term, a political construct. Because, I had to call my homies up in Detroit and Baltimore and Oakland. I'm saying, we live in a desert, you know what I'm saying? We live in a food desert. And then the people in the desert were saying, we got food. So I'm saying, no. So I coined the term food apartheid. And I coined that term food apartheid because I wanted people to understand the inference about food. The fact that if we need to talk about undoing injustice, then we need to talk about the framework that food is around. And the framework is around race, and we need to have those difficult conversations around race, those difficult conversations about demographics, and those difficult conversations about wealth. And we cannot have it, and we talk about food justice, we need to talk about food apartheid and the impact that it has. And the impact it has around power. And we talked about that today. I heard a lot of people talk about power, because how can we talk about getting power from people who have power over us? And so for me, doing this work, the question is, what does urban agriculture provide? Well, it provides a way for people to start thinking about taking control of their community, taking control of their environment, an educational piece. And I say that from an African-American standpoint because my history was taken away from me. The fact that we were brought here not because we were strong and we didn't know anything. We were brought here because of our knowledge of agriculture, to be able to instruct and give people the knowledge around crop rotation, saving seeds. And so now what you're seeing is a group of young people wanting to go back to the land because only land is powerful. And understanding that we were the ones that planted the seeds to feed this nation. And so now you have people thinking about growing food, going back to the land. As a matter of fact, in New York, we had to sort of train the health policy people, y'all out there in the health department, about growing food, because at one time they said we couldn't have chickens, but we looked on the book, we can have chickens, but we can't have roosters because they make noise. And then they said we couldn't have bees because bees were ferocious animals. But health department people, if we don't have bees, we don't have food. And so now you're seeing this sort of resurgence of people wanting to go back to the land because they need to control their food system. They need to control their health and well-being. Because a lot of people will tell you that, they have grandparents or great-grandparents that they were never sick a day in their life because they got their food from the land. And so now you're starting to see young people wanting to go back to the land because they know how important it is to grow their own food and to eat their own food. And so some of the things that you see are happening is that people are now coming together and starting to take power over their community. For too long, we've been waiting for the government and political people to fix things. No more fixing. People in the communities are now understanding their power and ownership in communities and starting community-based farmers markets. Coming together and starting more land trusts. People having the ability to control their neighborhoods, control the outcomes of affordable housing and what that should look like, or green spaces. They're coming together because they understand that in order to move this food system in a way, we have to start thinking about power and thinking about the element of entrepreneurship. And I say that because I'm from the Bronx, the boogie down Bronx. Out of 62 counties in New York State, the Bronx ranks the unhealthiest. But I tell people with power, both financial power and wealth, don't come into my community anymore with the promise of, I'm going to sign you up for some SNAP, or I'm going to send you to the nearest food pantry or soup kitchen. Come to my neighborhood with financial literacy. Come to my neighborhood to show the youth how to own a business. Come to my neighborhood to talk about investment, not in monetary investment, but investment in social capital. Come into my neighborhood and grant people three things: opportunity, capital, and power. And those people who you once deemed powerless can now become powerful. And so, as you know, as I've been on this journey, so what is the future of urban agriculture and urban farming? Well, according to the 2050 census, there'll be an additional 1 billion people living in this planet, mostly in urban areas. So urban farming is not going away, but we can get involved in growing food in a way in terms of technology and innovation. But that only happens, as someone has said earlier, if we put our resources into our youth. They're innovators. They need a chance. If we're going to move this food system, we also have to think about not fixing the food system, but how do we change it? And how do we change it, folks? It's the power dynamics. The power dynamics that we have in our food system. And I say that because at the end of the day, I tell people with power, there are three things you got to do. Either you got to give it up, you got to share it, or we're going to take it away. Welcome to the new food revolution. So at the end of the day, I say to you, to grow your own food gives you power. You knew who and why you grew it. You grew it for yourself. You grew it for your family. And you grew it for your community. Thank you so much. I'm Karen Washington. I grow food. I make people. I give people power. Thank you.